Good morning. So this video that I'm making is really important to me because it's on a book that I have, which is like a very spiritual book. So this is why I've put on my little cat collar, and I've got my little elephant god with me. I'm just gonna put him there. So basically, I'm going to be reading some excerpts from Osman Spare's two grimoires. Osman Spare is an extremely impressive artist. His work is extremely deep psychologically and spiritually. And basically, I'm just going to read some analysis of his work and his inspiration and how he basically processed the art world. So yeah. The first of the sketchbooks amplifies the prime importance of the word Amen. In Earth Inferno, it occurs on page 18, wherein Spare presents his creed of despair. In terms of both ambition and sexuality, Amen is the true light which imparts hope. It is also a clear invocation of the powers inherent in the cognate Egyptian god form. The word Amen in Egyptian means hidden, and is thus appropriate to the volcanic ancestral inheritance to which the fluctuating ego is heir, and by which it is actually conditioned. In Earth Inferno, it is highly likely that Spare is also alluding to the fourfold living creatures of Revelation 19:4, who pronounce the word Amen, the Hebrew signifying true, faithful, certain, which clearly accords with Spare's usage of it. It carries connotations of the Blakean Soaz and of the four elements upon which Spare is seen fabricating on page 6 of the second sketchbook. This book is titled in valediction The Arcana of Aos and the Consciousness of Kia Ra, locating in Kabbalistic terms the light of Kia descending and operating within the heart of human consciousness, in the solar sphere of Tipatheria, the focus of the ego. Now, there's quite a few pages that go on basically discussing his kind of like sexual nature and what he was interested in, and a lot of this is basically about like primitive sex, because this was all kind of before the sanitization of sexual urges. And a lot of it is described in terms of basically like the phallus and stuff, and he's basically alludes to the fact that he's interested much more so in women, but there's this whole like question over, especially with his affiliation with Crowley, whether he was actually like fascinated or tempted by the beast. Anyway, I don't. I'm not as like fascinated by the sexual part of it as I am by the artistic part of it. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to talk about basically more to do with what I've just spoken about. So, the Arcana of Eos opens with a chimerical cluster of images atop a pillar, prefiguring those of a book of satires, which carry implicit Grecian connotations. The Mask of Dionysus, it's very difficult to pronounce, in Existence, for example. Existence is the name of the art. These lead quickly into the heart of the book's concerns. Matters which were rehearsed in Earth Inferno were to have far-fetched effects in Spare's future work. It is virtually certain that Spare based this sketchbook on the Tarot of the Bohemians, published in 1892 by Gerard Ancus Papus, largely because it dovetails perfectly with other sources upon which he previously had drawn. Stamped upon the black cover of the book by Papus is the image of a gold key, the head of which is Rota, the wheel, which is an anagram for tarot. Together with the four major magical weapons and the four elemental symbols, with earth and air represented as bull and eagle, and the remainder by zodiacal signs. Pappas entitles this "The Absolute Key to Occult Science." So here is an image of the absolute key. Sorry, my hair. All of this would later be amplified in the quaternal stratification of a Book of Satyrs. Page 2 of the Arcana displays a variant of the Kia bird and a lion-headed figure reminiscent of the Hindu Narasimha, the lion man avatar of Vishnu. There is a man at the base of the plinth and a bull's head at the bottom right. These surround the curious scaffold-like structure. The whole is entitled "The Enigma of Being," with evolution opposite on page 3. The central structure contains many spatial ambiguities in its planes, something which the geometrical attuned spare was experimenting, and which he most effectively employed in Emanations of the Ego in the Book of Pleasure. This adumbrates a Book of Satyrs also. Obviously, the elemental creatures are emblematic of the Gospel mages, but are also of prime significance in Revelation. In 4:6, these are the beasts that are seated around the throne, and in 5:15, these beasts collectively utter the word Amen. Similarly, these four were of interest to William Blake, and an extended form can be equated with the four Zoas themselves. That these in Spare's drawings are seen proximately to a scaffold, rather than a throne, suggests death as an elementally equilibrating force, possibly through a prototypical death posture. Rotation is, of course, implicit rota/tarot, a point which Pappas underlines concerning the rotation of the quaternity. The numbers given by Spare on pages 2 and 3 provide the vital clue. On both pages, the repetition of 9/7 occurs, and on the right-hand page is the tetragrammation in cruciform format. This shifts the gear into what would become the third Kabbalistic and overtly magical stratum of satires. But in here is an embryonic form. On page 39 of the Tarot of the Bohemians, precisely this 9/7 configuration occurs in explanation of attribution in 3 cruciform diagrams of the number 1 to 10 of the minor arcana in terms of IHVH. The thesis of Pappas is developed further in chapter 10 in terms of the major arcana. This represents a typical piece of Spare synthesis in the splicing of ideas, a practice which he initiated in Earth Inferno. This manifests in a rule of 4, enabling both the structuring of images and the method of encrypting their meanings. Here, Spare is drawing parallels with Pappas's work on tarot to the methods of Ellis and Yeats in describing, through cruciform diagrams, the progressive cyclical fall of the Zoas, from golden spiritual visions, the fall into the leaden grip of reason, and disassociation from ecstasis of divine revelation. Here, they coalesce in Spare's attempt to formulate his own vision and his philosophical musings on the human condition and its potential through self-love, which would achieve its didactic expression in the Book of Pleasure. So that's where I'm going to leave it today. Yeah, all I have to say is like, wow.